QSAT Race, a Crossout video by Dangerously Incompetent. In my last race video, Cockpit Race Fail, link in the description below, I was struggling with inexplicable turning under boost. This session I replaced the cockpit cabin with the Griffin and the inexplicable turning is much reduced. Now the evidence is anecdotal because it's hard to replicate the same turn at the same speed with the same boost but do it with a different cabin in order to get empirical evidence, but my lap times have come down. So why is the Griffin cabin better? Well, it has more power, more mass and a lower speed limit than the cockpit, but I think it's what I'm doing with that extra power that is helping, not the extra power itself or the higher mass or the lower speed limit. More of that later. Talking of down, this race session I noticed many hovers were going fast but with a low ride height and not blowing up as I would expect with that ride height and that speed. Turns out that the race update increased the effective self-destruct speed, in race at least, so you can race lower and faster without scraping your bottom on the ground and exploding. Which means my 6 hover build for increased ride height was a complete waste of time. Observe, there's only 4 hovers on this build, exactly the same as the previous Griffin build, but only 4 hovers, not 6. And it's not blowing up when I'm going fast. In fact, it's going faster around the track because I've reduced the mass by 2 Icarus 7s, which are not inconsiderable mass, and that means more acceleration. But it's still suffering inexplicable turning under boost. Not as much as with the cockpit cabin, but it's still an issue. Thank you to everyone who took the time to tell me their theories for the inexplicable turning under boost phenomenon, and in particular RA2 lover for his quantum self-aligning torque theory. His Dangerously Incompetent's presentation of RA2 lover's QSAT theory. The cause of inexplicable turning under boost is that the booster's thrust is applied where your vehicle was in the previous step of the physics simulation, not where your vehicle is now. So when you turn sharply right and boost forward, the thrust is being applied to the right of your centre of mass, which causes your vehicle to turn to the left. Let me draw you some diagrams. Here's your vehicle and its direction of travel. You turn sharply, pointing the vehicle this way, but momentum keeps the vehicle travelling in the same direction as before, more or less. You find the boosters, but the thrust is applied here, where the vehicle was. And that thrust is offset from the centre of mass, which is where the vehicle is, and this causes the vehicle to turn. Now, my first reaction to QSAT theory was that cannot be right. Why would the devs apply the thrust in the wrong position? But the theory fits the observed data for inexplicable turning under boost phenomena. The greater your drift angle, that is the angle between where the vehicle is pointing and its direction of travel, the worse the phenomena gets. The faster the vehicle speed, the worse the phenomena gets. The more thrust from the boosters, the worse the phenomena gets. All fits. And the theory is just a model of how things work, and for the purposes of winning races, the reasoning behind QSAT theory doesn't really matter, so long as the model works. And it does. Using his quantum self-aligning torque theory, RA2 lover has built a vehicle that goes around rocky track really rather fast indeed. Certainly faster than I have been going up to now. You can find his build in the exhibition, the name is in the video description. Bearing QSAT in mind, this is my next race hover. Only has 4 hovers, it's got 8 blast-off boosters, 4 having been upgraded for acceleration. I'm trying to keep the mass as low as possible for increased acceleration, both linear and radial. I've made it square rather than an elongated rectangle to try and keep its angular inertia to a minimum, which should improve radial acceleration. I'm using a Howe cabin for its low mass and high power, a Cheetah engine for its increased cabin power. The Colossus may be a better engine as it increases cabin power more, but it has a higher mass. I don't know which is best yet, I need to experiment. And the higher cabin power means that I can increase the amount of turning I'm doing with the hovers. All this means the vehicle can be turned by the hovers rather than using lateral boosters. In the race, I'm not spinning sharply at the beginning of the turn. Instead of drifting, I'm performing controlled turns, the vehicle gradually changing direction as it progresses through the turn, thus keeping my drift angle to a minimum and inexplicable turning under boost to a minimum. This build does have two lateral thrusters for additional turning when needed, but I'm using them as little as possible in the turns. And this works. My lap times have improved again, thanks to QSAT theory. Thanks RA2 lover. Of course, none of this helps my rare part drift build. It's built around having a high drift angle, and thus suffers a lot of inexplicable turning under boost, which is a shame. I'll just have to consign this art build to the scrap heap. Unless the devs implement single class races, where you're limited in what parts you can use in your build. Maybe, just maybe. As for the rocky track that we're racing around on, it has 8 players, not 6 like the industrial track, and its scrap rewards are as they were before the 0.11.60 update. They're not reduced like they are on the industrial track. Rocky track is definitely built for speed, so unless you have a competitive racer, I'd stick to racing on a Friday on the industrial track. That's it for this video. See you on the racetrack.